Welcome to Running Up the Score. I'm Alex Kennedy. This is my new show that airs every Tuesday and Friday. Joining me today is a good friend of mine. He runs the Rookie Wire for USA Today Sports Media Group. He is Cody Taylor. Cody, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good, Alex. Always good to hop on with you and talk hoops whenever we can.
Always fun. I feel like on this show, I've been talking about the rookies so much with just every NBA guest that comes on. So who better to jump on and have a whole rookie-themed episode than you? For people that don't know, you've been doing this for several years now, basically covering the entire rookie class from the time they're going through the draft process to the end of their season at Rookie Wire. So, I mean, literally, this is your beat every single day. So I figured it'd be great to have you on, talk about kind of how this class compares to other classes and then some specific players in this class. So we obviously have to start with Victor Wembanyama. Wemby is what everyone's talking about. I know he's number one on most rookie ladders right now, rankings. He's been incredible. I mean, averaging nearly 20 points a game, 8.5 rebounds, 2.6 blocks. I saw NBA.com had a stat that if he continues this for the full season, the last time we'd seen rookies that kind of put up those kind of numbers would be David Robinson, who was much older, by the way, when he was a rookie. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on what we've seen from Wemby so far?
Yeah, I mean, he's been as advertised, right? Like the 38-point effort against the Suns last week stood out, and especially considering it came against Kevin Durant, a guy that he watched over the years. And, some people say they have similar skill sets, that's to be determined. But that was such an impressive performance, with his length, his athleticism, and just what he can do with the ball. We just haven't seen that. And of course, I'm sure we'll talk about him, but, with Chet Holmgren having 2 7-footers in this draft class, that can do what they do is just unseen. And so, it seems like we're gonna have these nights, these games where, there's a stat where he's the first since David Robinson, or he's the second player to do this stat line, or whatever the case is. And so he's already joined Shaq and LeBron and Cody in a couple of categories. So obviously he's off to a great start. I think we're gonna see as the season goes, teams figure out kind of how to defend him better. So I think that'll be something to watch and monitor to see how the Spurs kind of handle this and what they can do when he's double teamed, or, when they're taking the post away from him. Obviously, we saw the Knicks do that the other night, do a pretty good job of kind of limiting him compared to past games. So I really like how Victor's playing, how he's handling the transition. You listen to Greg Popovich talk about him. He loves the kid. He constantly talks about his maturity at 19, which is, it's just kind of hard to fathom. I know when I was 19, I couldn't handle nearly anything like the attention that Victor's has done so far. So I think so far through their first 6-7 games, he's really looked the part of being a once-in-a-generation player.
Yeah, it's crazy considering where the hype was, and the fact that he's not only met expectations, but arguably exceeded them is pretty wild. I mean, it's really impressive to see. I had his trainer, Tim Martin, on the show here, and he was just talking about his maturity and how he's kind of been dealing with this, not maybe this level of hype, but similar levels of hype for the last few years, and it's kind of helped him be able to adjust to Wemby mania and not be too fazed by it. And I think that's one of the most impressive things. It's not even just, his length and athleticism and what we're seeing on the floor. His maturity and basketball IQ and everything there is so impressive as well. Like Tim was saying, they whenever they started training, he was really showing Wemby moves over like Zoom. They were doing everything virtually for like the first few months, and Wemby would see something over Zoom, and then that night in a game he'd be doing it. Like that's just kind of person he is. So it's remarkable what we're seeing from him. You mentioned Chet Holmgren. I want to ask about him too, because I think if this were any other draft class, all the talk would be about Chet, but because Wemby's so ridiculous, he's kind of been like the 1B. I've been really impressed with him. There is an advantage when you sit out a whole season and kind of, get to be around the NBA and be around NBA coaches and resources and all that. But I think Chet was someone that was kind of looked at as someone that was drafted so high because of his potential. So the fact that he's having already such a, day one immediate impact has been really impressive to me.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at just some of the things that he's doing, for an entire year, last year we heard, well, the Thunder don't have Chet, and we were kind of curious to see how he would come back from that injury. And just kind of listening to updates about him throughout the year. He attacked his rehab every day to get better. obviously he did have the luxury of being around the team for a whole year, around their resources, which has definitely helped him tremendously. And, it's going to be a debate, I'm sure, as the season goes on. Should he really be considered a rookie player? Obviously we saw that with Ben Simmons and Donovan Mitchell the 1 year, which gave us a lot of good conversation and trash talk to each other. But, when you look at him on the court, he can do just, as we were talking about Victor, he can handle the ball, he can shoot. He's shooting at an absurd clip right now. I think he's in the 50, 40, 90 discussion right now. Obviously, we're, 7, 8 games in. So we'll see if he can continue that. He's shooting over 50% from three. So it's something that he said that he wants to do, shoot 50, 40, 90 in a year. And, and I think what really working for him is that he's really picking his spots. I don't think if you watch him play, he's not necessarily forcing shots. He's kind of just taking what they give him. He's benefiting by the space that's created by Shea and Josh Giddey and J-Dub and just everyone on that team. And so if he's got the shot, he's going to shoot it, especially from that corner. We've seen him spot up several times from there. But if he can work inside the paint and put some moves on whoever it is, he's going to do it. So I think he's been a lot of fun to watch. And I mean, the Thunder are off to a pretty good start. I think they're 5-3 as of this recording. And, I think they're finally showing signs of that team that's taken the next step that we saw last year, getting the play-in, and now this year kind of taking that next step. And so I think they're going to be a lot of fun to watch. And when you look at the Spurs and Thunder, I think two teams probably on opposite spectrums a little bit in terms of where they are in their rebuild, but absolutely worth watching on League Pass.
For sure. Scoot Henderson was so hyped up as well. Obviously, seeing what he did in the G League against grown men and professionals. He obviously hasn't gotten off to the best start. Now he's injured. But what are your thoughts on kind of what we've seen from Scoot so far? Again, it is such a small sample size. So I think anyone that's kind of panicking or freaking out, I think they should give him some time and be patient. But thoughts on kind of what Scoot's been dealing with entering the league?
Yeah, I absolutely love Scoot. I really put a lot of value in some of these Ignite guys playing in the G League. I think the competition is a lot better than college. And I think with that being said, I think we're seeing Scoot kind of have a little bit of a tough transition with the physicality of the NBA. Obviously, the G League is considered by some to be the second best league in the world. And then when you make the transition to the NBA, I think it's been a little rough for him. His shooting percentages aren't great, but that wasn't necessarily a strength of his. He just impressed me so much with his body size, his build, his athleticism, speed, ability to handle the ball, get his teammates involved, keep it himself, score, throw down, just some insane dunks. He's dealing with an ankle injury right now, so I believe he's missed the last 3-4 games or so. And there doesn't seem to be an update on when he might be back. But I think that it's going to take him time. I did my first rookie power rankings this week. I didn't include him in the top 10. I just don't think that I just thought that there are some other guys that were ahead of him that have contributed at a higher level, especially maybe considering where their teams are. Obviously, we know the Trailblazers are probably going to take a step back this year after the trade, but they've been competitive. They've been in games, and they're just decimated right now by injuries. Malcolm Brogdon just went down. Obviously, Robert Williams is probably going to be out for the year. So I think that the sooner they can get Scoot back, the better. Especially just not even for their team, but just for his development, get him on the court minutes and get some NBA competition under his belt.
One of the things that stands out to me about this rookie class, especially the top, is there's a lot of two-way players. Like Wemby and Chet are already being talked about as all defensive team guys that, or at least candidates. Asar Thompson has been great defensively and is kind of doing a lot of little things out there. It seems like it's not just a lot of scorers. You have some guys that can really do it on both ends of the floor. What are your thoughts on kind of the defensive impact we've seen from some of the top rookies in this class?
Yeah, it's been really cool to watch. And Draymond Green had a quote within the last week talking about Victor and Asar Thompson, or just the Thompson twins in general, just their ability to want to come into the league and defend. I think that we hear a lot of rookies, a lot of young guys talk about, defense is how I'm going to get on the court. If I can play positive minutes, if I can defend at a high level, that's how I'm going to get on the court. And then, the offense will come at some point. But I think, then there's the rookies that just want to come in and try to score as much as possible. But Draymond was really complimenting those guys, Victor and the Thompson twins, for their ability to come in and defend at a high level. Obviously, we know Victor can control the paint. I think we all know his wingspan is about 8 foot, which is just insane. And so with his ability to be in the paint, control the paint, and then to close out on the 3-point line and use his long arms and deflect the balls. And then with the Thompson twins, just super athletic, can stay in front of everyone. We're seeing Asar right now just put up some insane numbers. He's second in the league in offensive rebounding. He's 9th in blocks among all players, which is just crazy to think of. And so even outside of those two guys, Derek Lively from the Mavericks, he's been a guy that they really like. We saw him the other night here in Orlando against the Magic. He got in early foul trouble, so he didn't necessarily have one of his best games, but he's already got a couple double-doubles, and they really like just his ability to defend the paint. And even he had 6 assists one game, which was the second most by a Mavs rookie center in history. So I think he's showing that he can be a little bit more than just a defender. Obviously, he's going to get to work in the paint, take those high percentage looks near the rim. But, when he can kind of do some other things and keep some defenses honest, I think he's going to be in store for a really strong rookie year. And, just kind of further illustrates how some of these defensive-minded guys are, even with the Magic. Anthony Black hasn't played a ton, but he guarded Luka Doncic in that game. He's guarded a couple of the top opposing players when he's gotten in there. So I think, some of these guys with their athleticism, physical tools, and just their IQ understanding of the game have really shined on that side of the ball so far.
Yeah, Lively's one that I'm a big fan of. We talked about him on this show. I was tweeting about him a bunch. It seems like he's what Dallas has been looking for a while now, kind of that lob threat, defensive presence, great rebounder. So I've been a big fan of him as well. I'm glad you mentioned him. Let's talk about Brandon Miller because, again, he was drafted so high, but there really isn't a lot of talk about him. It seems like other guys are kind of overshadowing him. What are your thoughts on what he's shown so far?
Yeah, I mean, he has good numbers, 13 points, 4.5 rebounds so far. And I think for him, he's just been productive. He's just been a guy that the Hornets need. I don't know if he's going to have while he's definitely capable of having these kinds of games, I don't know if he's going to have like these. Jordan Hawkins has already had 30 points. Wemby's had 38 points. I don't know if he's going to have these, high scoring games this year because I don't know that the Hornets need him to do that. But he has gotten a lot of praise from Coach Clifford just for his understanding, IQ, ability, and competitiveness. They really like the way he competed in camp. I think there's been some talk of he should start or not. I think his role off the bench will probably be about where we'll see him this year. He'll probably get a couple spot starts with some guys out potentially, but I think he's just going to be a guy that can defend and space the floor for them. And he can also, if someone, closes out on him or if they give him some space, he can drive and take it to the paint and finish. We definitely saw that last year at Alabama. He just had such a productive rookie year, some that we haven't seen in quite some time. So I think that he's going to be a guy that will just be productive for him. They'll have a couple good, really, high scoring games probably, but for the most part, I would say he's going to be averaging about 13 to 15 points a game this year.
Who are some other rookies that have impressed you, either just with their numbers so far, maybe shown some flashes and you like their long-term upside? Who are some guys that we haven't discussed that have jumped out at you?
Yeah, no, we talked about Asar Thompson with the Pistons, and then they have another rookie, Marcus Sasser, who's been really incredible for them. He didn't play a ton of minutes to start the year, first couple of games, but Coach Monty Williams even talked at some point like, hey, it's my bad. I need to find him some more time. And they finally did, and he's producing. He's one of 2 rookies right now with multiple 20-point games. He's coming off a career high on Wednesday, and he's shooting just the lights out right now. He's shooting 50% from beyond the arc. I think it's 17 of 34 so far. Probably not going to shoot 50% for the entire year, but he just gives them that element of shooting. He's also a good defender. He'll pick up the entire length of the floor and pester some of the guys. So I think he's been another guy into the first round that has really stood out. Cason Wallace from the Thunder. We've talked about Chet, and rightfully so. We'll talk about Chet for a lot of the year, but 10th pick Cason Wallace has looked really good. He's defending, the opponent's best players. The coaching staff really like what they're giving him the freedom to guard guys, and he's really coming up and he's doing really well. So I think that, and he was known as a defender, and he's showing that. So I think it's always good when a guy who's known for something in college can come into the NBA and really show that. And then another guy that's kind of stood out is Jaime Jaquez from the Heat, just a guy that can come in, super athletic, can defend, and they like how he can attack the rim, shoot, and plays just some good minutes for them off the bench. They're not going to need him to do a ton with some of the guys they have there, but he's been a guy that I think has stood out so far.
I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Prize Picks. If you haven't tried daily fantasy sports on Prize Picks, you're missing out. You pick 2 to 6 players and whether they'll score more or less points than their Prize Pick projection. If you're right, you win big. You can win 25 times your money on any entry. At Prize Picks, you aren't competing against other people, which might include experts and sharks. It's just you versus the projections. Prize Picks offers projections on virtually every sport: NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, and more. You can mix and match players from different sports, so you could have Steph Curry and Patrick Mahomes in the same entry, for example. If you download Prize Picks today and use the promo code RUNNING, they'll double your deposit up to $100. That is the promo code RUNNING, and they will match your deposit up to $100. It takes 30 seconds or less to build a lineup. To show you how easy it is, I'm going to build an entry right now. All right, we're on Prize Picks. This is the rookie episode, so I feel like we have to go with a rookie. I'm going to go Star Thompson, more than 7.5 rebounds tonight against Philly. And then let's go over to the NFL. Receiving yards. Nico Collins, it looks like he's not going to play due to injury. So Tank Dell, more than 54.5 receiving yards against Cincinnati is really attractive. So let's go with that. $20 entry, place entry. We are good to go. We're entered. Thank you, Prize Picks, for sponsoring this episode. Use that promo code RUNNING and they will double your first deposit. It's a ton of fun, makes the games more interesting, so I highly recommend it. Use that promo code RUNNING and they will match your first deposit. Let's get back to the episode. As I mentioned, you do, draft coverage and cover the rookie class, all throughout pre-draft and stuff too. So you know a lot about this class, from top to bottom. Who are some second round picks or late sleepers that kind of stand out to you? Maybe they haven't gotten an opportunity yet or aren't putting up, crazy numbers or anything right now, but guys that have potential long term, or once they get an opportunity, they could make the most of it.
Yeah, there's a couple guys there in that second round, and maybe so far haven't got the chance to really play, but I think will. And I mean, there's a number of guys in the early 30s that, had first round grades from a lot of analysts and even teams themselves that were probably surprised they fell to them. I think Kobe Jones from the Kings he's been kind of thrust into the spotlight a little bit more with the injury to De'Aaron Fox. And, I think he's a guy that they want to see what they have in him. They certainly like what he can provide in the backcourt. And I think that, with some more time, we're not sure how long Fox will be out, but he's been a guy that I think will get an opportunity this year. And then you kind of look further down the line for the Trailblazers, Toumani Camara, who I actually put in my rookie power rankings at I believe it was number 10. I got him in, but he's a guy that head coach Chauncey Billups absolutely loves. He does not stop talking about him, and just his toughness, his competitiveness, and just he gives 110% on every possession. He's always running down the floor, blocking shots. He can shoot a little bit. He works in the paint. Just a guy that they absolutely love. He was thrown in the Damian Lillard trade. I think, most people kind of saw him as a throw-in, but it sounds like the Trailblazers absolutely love him. And so, with him and Scoot, they're looking to have a pretty solid, strong rookie class so far. And then Trace Jackson Davis for the Warriors, the 57th pick. He hasn't played a ton, but he has come in when the team has needed him. And, him and Podziemski, Brandon Podziemski from Santa Clara came in. They haven't played a ton, but Draymond Green had a quote within the last week that they had their last in-season tournament game that they beat the Thunder. He just went on a nice little Draymond Green-esque rant about them, wanting their energy, needing their energy that those two guys provide. And hopefully they'll stick around the team for some of the year, but they've already been kind of back and forth with Santa Cruz in the G League. But just guys that, when given the opportunity to play, they'll absolutely make their presence known, and guys that already, through November, have already earned the respect, trust of their teammates, including Draymond Green, which, obviously is not an easy thing to do.
So as I mentioned, you've been running Rookie Wire for several years now, and basically breaking down all the rookies, and then each year you move on to the next class. How does this class compare to other classes that you've covered, and then also just all time? Again, very clear. It's very early. It's 2 weeks into the season, but just as far as what they've shown so far, maybe the hype. I think I talked to a few people on the show, and they've said, this could be a generational class. It's that talented, especially kind of the cheat code of having Chet be part of this class. That definitely helps a little bit. But how is this class compared to other ones that you've covered, and then just all time?
Yeah, I think I believe this is the 5th class that we've covered. I want to say the first one was the Zion, John Morant class. And then, so far, I think the class has been really, really strong. Obviously, like you said, it's very small sample size, so the jury's still out. But I think that they have the potential to go down as one of the better ones in recent memory. I think a couple years ago, the Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, Jalen Green, Franz Wagner, Jalen Suggs class has been probably overall the best one that I've covered. And we saw even in Scotty Barnes, and I think Josh Giddey was in that one. All of them kind of run together, if I'm being honest. But, I think that one had the closest Rookie of the Year finish in history since it went to the current voting format. Scotty just kind of got over Evan Mobley. I thought Evan probably should have been the Rookie of the Year winner that year, but overall, I think that one was probably the best class that I covered because, I mentioned Franz Wagner, who was the 8th pick, and, was probably should have been a Rookie of the Year finalist, finishing in the top 3, but, all rookie first team. And so we've seen some good ones come through since we started the website in 19. But I think that this one's going to be fun. And it is fun to kind of cover these guys from the start of their careers, and then kind of look back and see how they've progressed. It can be good and bad to look back at a couple guys and be like, I just look back and be like, oh, I didn't necessarily cover that guy a lot because he didn't play a lot, and now he's, doing really well. Or on the other side, where I've covered him a bunch, or, he was supposed to be really good, it just didn't pan out necessarily. So it's kind of cool to see how the guys progress and just, how they've taken advantage of their situations and playing time.
Speaking of which, you do some like redrafts, or, looking back on who should have gone higher and everything in draft class. I know you did a few months ago a redraft of last year's class. And again, you spent all of last year writing about these guys. What are your thoughts on some of the top guys in that class? Paolo, Jalen Williams. It's a pretty strong class, especially at the top there. There are a few guys that have emerged and looked really good. Who's kind of stood out to you as far as sophomores, and what are you seeing from them this season, I guess?
Yeah, and last year I would probably say was overall maybe the second. I should probably go back and kind of rank all the classes that I've done. That'd be a fun exercise. But I think last year was one of the better ones, maybe the second or third best one. I'd have to look back at the Zion class again and just see just how everyone kind of panned out. But last year it was really fun to cover, have the opportunity to cover Paolo throughout the year and kind of document his rookie of the year run, being in Orlando. That was fun to watch. He's obviously been off to a pretty good start this year. He's already had, I think, a 30-point game, if I'm not mistaken. So I think he's continuing on his development path. Obviously, a key piece for the Magic. Shaedon Sharpe he's been off to a good start. Obviously he didn't play a ton last year, and this year he's still, you can kind of still see he's working through some turnovers and some other mistakes, which is obviously natural for a second-year guy, especially one that didn't play in college. So he's been a guy that's been off to a good start. J-Dub, Jalen Williams from the Thunder. I think there was a section of people that maybe thought, just from his second half of last year till now, I don't know if anyone from that rookie class has been as good as him. Obviously didn't win Rookie of the Year. But I think he's been off to a great start, and you just kind of look at where his progression is and just the things that he's doing. He's obviously a key piece for the Thunder moving forward, and it's a lot of fun to watch. And then as I kind of just look at some other names here, Jalen Duren from the Pistons has been, a monster. Even last year as a rookie, he's, pulling in rebounds that, people like since like Dwight Howard and Shaq, and he obviously anytime you can put your name alongside those guys, you're doing pretty well. And then another guy who I've been really impressed with so far is Mark Williams from the Hornets. He didn't play a ton. I think they kind of went to him as the season kind of got away from them last year, kind of went a little sideways. But I think he had 28 or 29 points already in the game this year. He posted some insane numbers in the G League last year when he wasn't getting minutes in Charlotte. So I think he's developing into a guy that they absolutely need in Charlotte. Some of their recent draft picks haven't worked out. I talked about earlier, James Bouknight, recent draft pick a couple of years ago, hasn't worked out. They didn't pick up his rookie option. So his future's obviously to be determined. So I think to get Mark Williams and see where he's at right now, I think the Hornets have to love that. And he's been definitely a sophomore guy that I think has really kind of started off the year on a good foot.
One thing that was discussed recently, I think The Athletic reported that the NBA has talked about adding a second day to the NBA draft. So kind of doing it more like the NFL draft, where you have first round on day one, second round day two. Not only would that, be good for not only that be good for TV purposes and kind of dragging it out, making it a 2-day event like the NFL has, but the GMs also are pushing for it because it gives them more time to react to the players that are on the board entering the second round and make trades and things like that. So I think it's probably going to get done. It seems like it'd be a win for everyone involved. The NBA gets 2 days of TV ratings and talk. The GMs get more time to kind of, okay, round one ends. Now let's look into round two and see, who's still there that we didn't think would be there. Let's do our homework overnight and talk to their teams about transactions and things like that. A lot of the second round too is negotiating with guys about whether they're willing to do a 2-way or play in the G League, and certain guys are making the decision, do I want to go overseas instead? Or we've heard stories in recent years of like Austin Reeves, who could have been drafted, but instead decided to bet on himself and go undrafted so he could sign with the Lakers. So I think it makes a lot of sense. There's so many things happening that to add a second day for the second round, it's not just for TV purposes and, to make the NBA talked about for 2 days. It actually does seem to make sense behind the scenes too for, GMs and front offices. What are your thoughts on the idea to kind of add a second day to the NBA draft?
Yeah, I mean, it almost seems like, why haven't they done it sooner? Like by all accounts, it would seem like the teams executives, scout, or just everyone would benefit by having an extra night to think about the second round. And, as I mentioned earlier, every year there's always guys that fall to the second round that had first round grades on them. And teams can get just maybe another night to think about some things and as you said, work behind the scenes with agents to get guys, whatever the case is, two ways or going undrafted and signing deals, as undrafted free agents. And then obviously agents would probably love it too. I mean, especially if you're your agency that has multiple guys, obviously you would probably like some more time to think about where maybe you want to send your guys to. And then, selfishly, from our vantage point in the media, I know there are nights when I'll leave the Magic's arena or training facility, past midnight after having, to cover not only the Magic, but some of the other top guys. And then it won't be until the next day that sometimes I'll even see, oh, so-and-so went here or there or whatever. I'm following along, but you get a little bit more time to kind of digest things, what you just saw from the first round. It will probably not be great for, as we see in the NFL, when there's like the guys that get invited to the green room that have to wait an extra day. It was at Will Levis this year, I think, for in the NFL, had to wait a whole other night. And obviously we've seen guys in the NBA that were in the green room who are mostly expected to be top 20, top 25 picks go as late as, I think Jaden Hardy went 37 last year, and he was a green room guy. So I think by all accounts, it seems to work for everyone. And so hopefully that'll get done, next year, and we'll get some extra time in between the rounds to kind of just sit there, digest things, and just, react to it, really.
Yeah, I think another element of this is that, players in the second round, they don't have guaranteed money. It's not completely guaranteed to them. There's not a rookie scale for the second round. So there is more negotiating to be done too. So if a team is between two players, that could be a factor, or it just kind of gives everyone more time to discuss whether it's trades or negotiate deals or, have those kind of conversations behind the scenes. So yeah, I think it'll probably happen, and it makes a lot of sense. It would be interesting. I'm curious to see like what those numbers for the second day would be, like as far as ratings go. How much interest is there? Like obviously people like you and I are degenerates that are going to watch to see who gets drafted in the second round, and but if you're hyped up about like this last year, for example, everyone's watching about to see where Wemby and Scoot and some of these top guys go. How many fans will keep watching the second day? I'm sure the NFL sees that too. There's a big drop off whenever you get to, especially like day 3. It's like hardcore fans. So I'm curious to see what that would look like as far as how it would not only change like the TV broadcast, but also what the ratings would look like. But I'm sure the NBA would prefer having the draft talked about over 2 days. Just like the NFL draft now, you would have day 1 grades and then day 2 grades. So the media is talking about it and separating them kind of. And yeah, like it would suck for the players, to your point, that fall, and then they have to wait a whole other day to figure out where they're going. But it also, like the Will Levis thing, everyone was talking about it entering day 2 of the NBA draft or NFL draft, and it was like a huge storyline and stuff. So I think there's a lot of reasons to do it, and I'm curious why it hasn't been done before. To your point, it feels like that should have been kind of how it's been for a while now. But I think it makes sense to add that. I want to ask you, it seems like so many players in the NBA today enter the league and they're able to make an impact from day 1. And whereas, 10, 20, I guess more like 20 years ago, we saw it would take guys a while to kind of develop and figure out the game. And obviously not everyone comes in and makes an impact right away, but like the top guys, there are a lot of examples of guys who've been able to step in and just be great from day 1. And I wonder if that's partially because of how guys are kind of coming up now. Like they start working with these professional trainers when they're, in their early teenage years. And it seems like they're like more prepared for the NBA lifestyle. Like, I talked to Paolo, for example, and I feel like he's been kind of approaching his life and basketball career as if he were a pro for like 5, 6, 7 years now. So it's not as much of a total culture shock for these guys when they do enter the NBA. Now, obviously, they have to adjust to the schedule and travel and things like that. But I don't know. Do you think that these guys were able to make an impact quicker because of how they kind of come up and how it's kind of how, what's changed in amateur basketball, especially for top prospects?
Yeah, I absolutely think that's a huge part of it. We hear, even listening to Kevin Garnett recently on his show on Showtime, talking to Paul Pierce, and they're talking about Wemby, obviously not the traditional path for, he grew up in Europe, but these guys are coming into the league just so skilled now. Like, we hear some players that didn't do the things that some of these guys are doing when they entered the league. Like JJ Redick has talked about that as well. He didn't know, obviously, he came in and didn't play a ton his first few years, but he's talked about that on his podcast, how these guys are just so skilled right now. And you got to think that's, working with just some of the people that they have in their corner. Like you mentioned, Paolo, obviously he's been with Mike Miller a few years now, former NBA player. I think a lot of these guys are getting in with these programs, training facilities that are preparing them, working out with other NBA guys, and being around the game for as long as they have. Obviously, Impact Basketball in Vegas is a huge one that, works out so many guys and have so many former players or coaches or whatever the case kind of running the drills. So I think that, a lot of these guys are just so ready, so prepared. I wonder too if, some of the guys that have tested the draft a few years, kind of working out with teams, knowing what teams want to do, how they want to put them through drills, the advice, feedback that they're getting. Some of these guys are testing the draft the maximum amount of times they can, which is 3. So, after the second time, you got to stay in. But I think that these guys being around, the facilities, the training staffs, and just having some of the people in their corner have absolutely helped them, prepare them to be ready to play from day one. And that's part of it. The other part is, we're seeing there's always been teams that have been rebuilding, but to have some of the guys that are skilled as they are come in and start playing immediately, I think has been important for the teams.
Yeah, they get an opportunity to show what they can do right away. I think a big part of it, too, is so many of the top prospects coming in now are international players who have been pros for a couple of years. Like someone like Victor Wembanyama or Luka Doncic, they played professionally overseas, so they did kind of get used to the pro environment. They've been playing against guys that were, 10 years older than them for some time now. Like I know Luka, he said, I think on JJ Redick's podcast, that the biggest thing for him entering the NBA, the hardest part was just being in a different time zone than his family and kind of the off-court stuff. He was like, the basketball stuff came easy, and actually said the NBA was easier for him as a scorer than EuroLeague because the rules are different, physicality is different. He said the talent's better in the NBA, but he actually said on the court, it wasn't hard for him as far as the transition, and he didn't think he'd ever be as good of a scorer as he is now. But it was mostly off-court stuff. So I think that helps too. Like when you have so many top prospects that are international players, they literally have been pros. It's just doing it in a different league now. So I'm sure that helps as well. But yeah, I mean, it's been so impressive seeing what some of these guys are able to do from day one. Whereas in the past, I feel like there was way more of a development curve where guys would come in and figure out the NBA and then get used to the travel and the schedule. And sometimes guys didn't start looking, like they belonged in a league until like year 2, 3. But it's kind of interesting to see. You would think too, back in the day, it'd be different because guys would have like 3-4 years of college. So you're like, oh, they're more mature and ready when they enter the league. But I mean, it seems like whatever they're doing behind the scenes, to your point, training with guys in the off season at places like Impact Basketball or all these different gyms, that has to help a ton. And then I think also they're just having people in their camps much earlier too. Like, they're getting advisors and trainers and strength and conditioning people. Like I know Victor Wembanyama has been working with like his flexibility and conditioning people for several years now. So it's very interesting to see. But I appreciate you joining me here to break down the rookie class. It's been a super fun one. I love watching these guys play, and I'm glad we were able to hit on everyone that we did. Can you tell everyone where they can find your work and kind of what you guys do on Rookie Wire, if they missed what I said earlier?
So you can catch us on the Rookie Wire, the rookiewire.usatoday.com, and I'm on Twitter at Cody Taylor NBA. But just breaking down some of the the top guys, the Victor Wembanyama, Scoots, and all the guys we talked about today, and then of course we also cover the guys coming up in the league and and the college guys and all the guys. So anyone, young players and those coming into the league here soon. So yeah, all the coverage on Rookie Wire.
Yeah, definitely check it out. It does a fantastic job with not only breaking down the incoming, the current rookies, but also mock drafts, redrafts. If you're a fan of a team, it's always interesting to see kind of what Cody and guys over Rookie Wire are saying about, your team's rookies. So definitely check that out. And if you guys want to watch more episodes of Running Up the Score, they air every Tuesday and Friday. You can watch the show live on Twitter. You can listen to episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you guys want to listen. But until next time, thanks for watching.